Welcome to the It Factor. We're Jemmy and we're diving into a blog post today by Mr. Len Kaplan,
Yep, Len Kaplan.
CEO of CDML,
That's right.
an MSP in Queens, New York, offering a whole bunch of services for small businesses and growing organizations, network management, VoIP, and UCAS,
Voice and Unified Communications Services.
cybersecurity, compliance, IaaS,
Infrastructure as a service in the cloud.
cloud, Microsoft 365, and Azure.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you are a small business owner.
Or you manage IT for a growing organization.
Yeah.
This one is for you, so stick around.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We're talking about security cameras today and some of the risks that they can introduce to your network.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive, right?
Right.
You install these cameras to protect you, to keep an eye on things.
To make you more secure.
But, it turns out that we need to be keeping an eye on the cameras themselves.
Yeah, that's what this blog post digs into.
Right. So Len Kaplan's blog post really digs into this. And it starts off with some kind of surprising ways that cameras can be compromised. One of which is this thing called the EMI technique, which I'd never heard of before.
That was new to me too.
From Northeastern University. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the EMI technique, this is kind of fascinating because it shows how devices that don't even have obvious listening capabilities can actually be vulnerable to eavesdropping.
Oh, wow.
And so by analyzing the electromagnetic radiation that leaks from the internal wiring of all sorts of cameras, this can even apply to like your dash cam in your car.
Oh, really?
Or the camera in your phone. Researchers have shown that it's possible to reconstruct audio
Oh, my God.
from that electromagnetic radiation. So it's kind of a completely unexpected way to eavesdrop on someone.
It really is. I mean, that's kind of scary.
It is.
It makes you think about all the little signals that everything's emitting these days.
Oh, yeah.
And then, the blog post also brings up this example of a flaw in Wise cameras
Right.
that exposed private footage of thousands of users due to a caching issue.
Right. It wasn't like a targeted attack or anything. It was just a mistake in how the data was handled.
So just floppy, basically.
Yeah. And it exposed all this footage.
That just goes to show you that, the security isn't just about defending against people who are intentionally trying to get you,
That's right.
but also about, the security practices of the companies that are making the products that you're using.
Exactly. And so it really raises an important question for you as a business owner. How closely are you looking at the security reputation and the track record of these technology vendors that you rely on?
Yeah, you just kind of assume, right,
Yeah.
that these devices are going to be secure, because why wouldn't they be?
Well, and a lot of times these devices come from big name brands
Yeah.
that we're all familiar with. And so we just automatically assume that they must have really robust security. But that Wise incident really shows that that's not always the case.
That's a good point. And then, the blog post also details these kind of more direct attack scenarios.
Right.
One of which is the Secure ransomware gang
Yeah.
exploiting an unsecured webcam.
Right. And this one is particularly alarming for any business owner because it really highlights how something as simple as a webcam can become a gateway for some really serious threats.
And I think what's interesting about this attack is that, that they kind of bypass the typical endpoint detection and response systems.
The EDR.
Yeah.
So they didn't directly attack the main network defenses. They kind of found a side door.
Yeah, so they found an unlocked window on the side of the building instead of trying to, break down the front door.
Exactly. And they used that to gain entry. And then once they were in, they used software like AnyDesk to steal data. And they used remote desktop protocol, RDP, to move around the network without being detected.
Sneaky.
Yeah. And then what's even more remarkable is that when they initially tried to deploy the ransomware, it got blocked, but they didn't give up.
Well, they didn't.
No, they didn't. They actually used that same compromised webcam connection to deploy a Linux-based version of their ransomware.
Oh, so they had a backup plan.
They did. So it just shows how adaptable these attackers are and how determined they are to get what they want.
So that really just underscores, the need for a multi-layered approach to security.
Right. Relying on just one security system is not going to cut it.
So don't just rely on your EDR. You need other things in place.
You need multiple layers of security because these attackers are going to look for any way they can get in.
So what are some of the risks,
Right.
specifically, that unsecured cameras can introduce to a business?
Okay, so obviously network infiltration is a huge concern.
Right.
A compromised camera can give attackers a foothold to get into your network and access all your sensitive business data.
Right. All your financial records, customer databases, employee
Yeah,
information, all that stuff
exactly.
becomes vulnerable.
Yeah, and then beyond data theft, there are other concerns like surveillance. So depending on where your cameras are placed, they could be used to spy on your employees or even your customers.
Yeah, that's definitely not good for privacy.
Right, and then there's also the risk of your cameras being recruited into a botnet,
Oh, wow.
which can then be used to launch DDoS attacks.
Distributed denial of service attacks.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
without even knowing it, your business's internet bandwidth and resources could be used to attack other targets.
So you could actually end up being part of the problem
Right.
without even realizing it.
And that could have legal ramifications as well.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah. And then, of course, as we saw at that Acura incident, ransomware deployment is a real threat, and unsecured cameras can be that initial point of entry.
right, they just kind of open the door.
Right.
And then the last thing that the blog post mentions, which is important to keep in mind, is reputation damage.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
Because if news gets out that your company's security cameras were the cause of a data breach or a ransomware attack, that can really damage customer trust and your brand image.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in today's business, climate security is so important for building and maintaining customer trust.
Right.
And if you have a security incident, especially one involving something as visible as a security camera, that can have some really lasting negative consequences for your business.
So what are some of the things that small businesses can do to actually, protect their businesses?
Well, the blog post has a lot of good advice.
It does. It does.
And one of the first recommendations is to choose reputable brands.
Yeah. So opt for manufacturers that have a strong history of security practices.
Right. It might be tempting to go with the cheapest option, but if that device has security flaws, it could end up costing you way more down the line.
Yeah. It's like the old adage, you get what you pay for.
Right. And then consistently updating your device firmware is super important.
Yeah. Those updates are there for a reason, right?
Right. They patch security weaknesses.
It's like leaving your door unlocked if you don't install those updates.
Exactly. And then another really important thing is to use strong, unique passwords for each of your security devices.
So don't use the same password for every device.
No, and definitely don't use the default passwords that come with the devices.
Right. Those are usually so easy to guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basic security hygiene.
Exactly. And then the blog post talks about this thing called network segmentation.
Yeah. So basically isolating your cameras on a separate network from your main business network.
Right. It's like having internal firewalls.
Uh-huh.
So if an attacker does manage to compromise one of your cameras, they're not going to be able to easily move to other parts of your network where you have your sensitive data.
So it kind of limits the damage.
Exactly. It contains the breach.
That makes a lot of sense. And then another thing that the blog post recommends is enabling encryption for both the transmission and the storage of your camera footage.
Right. Encryption is really important for protecting the privacy of your camera feeds.
So even if someone does manage to intercept the footage, they're not going to be able to view it
Right.
if it's encrypted.
Right. It's just going to look like gibberish to them.
I like that. And then the blog post also talks about physical security measures,
Oh, yeah.
like being strategic about where you place your cameras.
Right. You want to make sure they're not easily accessible to someone who might want to tamper with them.
Right.
And you might also want to consider using lens covers when the cameras aren't actively recording.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea, especially if you have cameras in private areas.
Exactly. It helps to protect people's privacy, and it also reduces the potential attack surface.
Right. So you're not giving attackers any more opportunities to get in.
Right.
And then another thing that the blog post emphasizes is the importance of managing all of your internet-connected devices.
Yeah, it's not just about the cameras.
Right.
It's about every single device on your network.
Right, because any device that's connected to the internet could potentially be an entry point for attackers.
Exactly. So you really need to treat all of your devices like potential security risks.
So like your smart thermostats, your printers, your, everything.
Everything.
All those little devices.
Yeah, and you need to have a process for inventorying them, assessing their security, and managing them.
Yeah, make sure you know what you have and that everything is secure.
Right. And then finally, the blog post really stresses the importance of implementing layered security.
Right, so don't rely on just one security solution to protect your whole network.
Exactly. You need to have multiple layers of security in place.
So it's kind of like having, a fence around your house.
Right.
And then, bars on the windows and an alarm system.
Exactly. You're just making it as difficult as possible for anyone to get in.
Right, and if one layer fails, there's another layer there to catch the threat.
Exactly.
So this blog post that we've been talking about is from CDML Computer Services.
Yes.
They're a managed service provider in Queens, New York, and they serve small and medium-sized businesses in the New York City area.
Yeah, and they offer a whole range of IP services.
They do network management, VoIP and unified communications,
Right.
cybersecurity compliance, digital transformation,
Cloud infrastructure solutions.
cloud infrastructure solutions, Microsoft 365 support.
They do it all.
They do it all. And they also have partnerships with a lot of major technology vendors.
Oh, yeah. They work with big names like Dell,
Microsoft QuickBooks, Onyqual.
HP Aruba. So they clearly have experience working with a wide range of solutions that businesses like yours probably already use.
Right. And they also offer Virtue UCAS, VoIP, and VFAX services.
Yeah, so they can provide integrated communication tools as well.
Yeah, and something that I thought was really interesting about their blog post was they emphasize transparency and building strong partnerships with their clients.
Yeah, and they also talk about providing a human touch when they explain IT solutions.
Yeah, that's important, right?
Yeah, especially for small business owners who might not be super technical.
Right.
It's really helpful to have an IT partner who can explain things in plain language.
Yeah. You want to be able to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Exactly.
So if you're a small business owner in the NYC area and you're looking for IT support,
CDML is a great resource.
they're easy to get in touch with, too.
Yeah.
You can call them at 718-393-5343.
Or you can email them at sales@cdml.com.
Or visit their website at www.cdml.com.
And they also encourage you to check out their blog and YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, they have a lot of good content on there.
They do.
So I would definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah.
So what's the big takeaway here?
I think the main takeaway is that security cameras can be a valuable tool for protecting your business, but they're not inherently secure.
Right.
You need to make sure that you're configuring them correctly, managing them properly, and integrating them into a broader security strategy.
Yeah. Otherwise, they could actually make your network more vulnerable.
That's right.
So it's really important to be proactive about security.
Yeah, stay informed about the latest threats and take the necessary steps to protect your business.
Don't just assume that everything is fine because it probably isn't.
Exactly. And as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with one final thought. As you think about all the devices that are connected to your network,
Right.
what other seemingly harmless technologies could be creating unseen vulnerabilities?
Yeah. Something to think about.
It is.
It's not just about the obvious security risks.
Right. Sometimes the biggest threats are the ones that we don't even realize are there.
So it's important to stay vigilant and to always be thinking about security.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
I always learn so much from these conversations.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners did as well.
I hope so too.
Until next time, stay safe out there.
Stay secure.